Throughout history, some of the most infamous and complex crimes have been solved by the most unlikely of clues. In the world of crime solving, even the smallest piece of evidence can unravel a mystery, bring justice, and make the impossible possible. In this video, we'll dive into some of the most extraordinary crime cases where a seemingly insignificant detail or overlooked clue led investigators down the path to solving crimes that had baffled the world. The capture of the Zodiac Killer. DNA evidence. The Zodiac Killer is one of the most notorious serial killers in history, terrorizing the Bay Area in the late 1960s and early 1970s. The killer, who sent cryptic letters to the press, claimed responsibility for at least 5 murders, though some believe the actual number was higher. The case went cold for decades, with no concrete leads or suspects. But in 2020, investigators cracked the case wide open after a small clue. A DNA sample taken from one of the Zodiac's letters was finally tested using modern technology. This tiny bit of evidence, paired with advancements in genealogical DNA testing, led to a suspect, Gary Francis Post, who had died in 2018. Although Post was never officially charged, this breakthrough reignited interest in the case and brought closure to the victims' families, even if it wasn't the traditional resolution everyone had hoped for. The JonBenét Ramsey case, a small piece of tape. The 1996 murder of 60-year-old beauty queen JonBenét Ramsey has haunted the public for years. Found murdered in her family's Boulder, Colorado home, the case remains one of the most high-profile unsolved crimes in American history. Despite a grand jury's involvement and multiple theories, investigators struggled to find a clear lead. Then, in 2008, a breakthrough came from a seemingly minor detail, a small piece of tape found on the victim's mouth. This tape matched perfectly with duct tape that had been found in the Ramsey family's basement. By testing the fibers from the tape, investigators were able to link the crime to the family's basement. While many speculated that JonBenét's parents might have been involved, the tape gave a chilling glimpse into the killer's actions and narrowed down the scene of the crime, bringing investigators closer to a resolution. The capture of the Golden State Killer. A single drop of blood. The Golden State Killer, also known as the East Area Rapist, committed at least 12 murders and 50 rapes across California in the 1970s and 1980s. For decades, the identity of the killer remained a mystery, despite the killer's horrific reign of terror. Then, in 2018, a small clue led to the biggest breakthrough in the case: a single drop of blood. Investigators used DNA from crime scenes to create a family tree via genealogy databases. They eventually traced the blood sample to Joseph James D'Angelo, a former police officer who had been living a quiet life. A combination of forensic genealogy and DNA analysis led to his arrest in 2018, and he later pleaded guilty to 13 counts of murder and 13 counts of kidnapping. D'Angelo's arrest marked the end of one of the longest and most chilling manhunts in American history, all thanks to a single drop of blood. The case of the Somerton Man. A tiny scrap of paper. In 1948, the body of an unidentified man was found on Somerton Beach in Adelaide, Australia, with no apparent cause of death. The man, later dubbed the Somerton Man, had no identification on him, and investigators were baffled by his mysterious death. However, a small clue emerged when authorities discovered a tiny scrap of paper hidden in a secret pocket of the man's pants. The paper contained the words Tamam Shud, which translates to ended or finished in Persian. The clue led authorities to a book of poems, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which had a code written inside. While the exact meaning of the code remains unsolved, the discovery of this small scrap of paper reignited interest in the case and suggested that the man's death was part of a larger, possibly espionage-related, mystery. Though the identity of the Somerton Man remains unknown, this small clue continues to captivate amateur sleuths and investigators alike. The capture of the BTK killer. a floppy disk. The BTK killer bind, torture, kill, terrorized Kansas for over 30 years, committing a series of brutal murders and sending taunting letters to the police and media. For decades, the killer evaded capture, despite his gruesome and methodical killings. Then, in 2004, a small clue, a floppy disk, brought the killer to justice. Dennis Rader, the man behind the BTK killings, sent a letter to the police that included a floppy disk. Investigators were able to recover deleted data from the disk and traced it back to a computer at a local church where Rader was active. A seemingly harmless piece of technology led authorities straight to Rader's door. In 2005, he was arrested and later confessed to 10 murders. The floppy disk that was thought to be an insignificant piece of evidence turned out to be the key to solving one of the longest-running serial killer cases in U.S. history. The murder of Elizabeth Short, a tiny fragment of a letter. The murder of Elizabeth Short, known as the Black Dahlia, remains one of the most infamous unsolved cases in American history. Short was found murdered and gruesomely mutilated in Los Angeles in 1947. Despite multiple leads, the case went cold. However, decades later, a small clue emerged that would bring attention back to the case. A fragment of a letter that Short had written. The letter, which had previously been overlooked, contained cryptic references that pointed toward a suspect, George Hodel, a prominent doctor in Los Angeles. Hodel was never officially charged with the murder, but the fragment of the letter raised enough suspicion for some to believe he was involved. While the case remains officially unsolved, the letter continues to fuel theories about who was responsible for the Black Dahlia murder. The disappearance of the Beaumont children, a single footprint. In 1966, the Beaumont children, 3 siblings from Australia, vanished without a trace while playing on a beach in Adelaide. Despite exhaustive searches, no trace of the children was found, and the case grew colder with each passing year. However, investigators discovered a small clue, a single footprint near the area where the children were last seen. The footprint was analyzed and believed to belong to a man who may have been involved in the children's disappearance. This clue reignited the investigation and led to renewed efforts to uncover what happened to the Beaumont children. While the case remains unsolved, the footprint is one of the key pieces of evidence that keeps the case alive in the public's mind. The murder of Mary Fagan, a single witness. The murder of 13-year-old Mary Fagan in 1913 in Georgia was a tragic crime that captivated the nation. Leo Frank, a Jewish factory manager, was arrested and convicted of her murder, largely based on a single witness, a young girl named Montine Stover. Stover's testimony revealed a crucial clue that undermined the prosecution's case. Stover claimed she had been in Frank's factory at the time Mary was murdered, yet Frank had claimed to be in his office alone. This inconsistency in Frank's alibi led to a re-examination of the case, though it was ultimately too late to prevent Frank's wrongful conviction. In 1986, new evidence led to his posthumous exoneration, and the case became an example of how a seemingly small witness statement can dramatically impact the outcome of a criminal trial. In the world of crime solving, sometimes it's the tiniest of clues that lead to the biggest breakthroughs. Whether it's a scrap of paper, a tiny drop of blood, or a seemingly insignificant piece of technology, these small clues have cracked open some of the most complex and chilling cases in history. They remind us that, in the pursuit of justice, no detail is ever too small to matter. If you found this exploration into how small clues solved some of the biggest crime cases intriguing, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more incredible stories from the world of true crime, so don't miss out.